What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Everything Virtual. We are streaming live on Twitter and Twitch, or I guess Periscope technically. And this episode will be up on YouTube for all the folks who want a video version of this. Otherwise, we are more than happy to talk to you guys on the usual channels of the podcast, which is where this started. So I'm Zain, joined by Ronnie as usual. Ronnie, how's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
Good. I'm liking this new format. I feel like it's helping us stay what's the word? Just organized, I guess, and also
Yeah,
just on top of a lot of really cool developments that are happening in VR. So I would say for news, we should definitely start with Oculus because I feel like there's so much there.
there was
Um,
just over the past couple of days.
yeah, over
There
the
there
past
have
couple
been
of days.
tons of announcements. Nothing like there are some really big announcements just in terms of them finally. I mean, not to steal the headlines or anything, but yeah, they're moving some stuff out of beta,
Mhm.
kind of making it official. With that, I think there's going to be a lot of announcements of software
Yeah.
coming. Developers are going to be able to release new types of software soon, so that stuff's
Interesting.
interesting. And
Okay, so
if you want to jump into it, and then
yeah, well, so I was gonna organize it this way. Okay, so we're gonna skip through the first part of the Oculus news with just kind of like the headlines. So the first one, Oculus just turned one, so happy birthday to Oculus. Oh, sorry,
not
Quest. The
yeah.
Quest just turned one, so happy birthday to the Oculus Quest. And yeah, I hope everybody who's had a Quest for the past year has been enjoying it, and everybody who's trying to get a Quest now can hopefully get one. I heard that they are back in stock for a very limited time. Um, the other thing is that Oculus software sold $100 million worth of software,
And I think
and this is
that's
just the Quest.
yeah, exactly.
This is
That's what
just
I
the
was going to
Quest.
say.
So in 1 year, that's some pretty good loot for the company. And
And I
then
and on that one, just to put it in
sure.
perspective, I saw some information. I'm just bringing this out of the top of my head, so people can correct me if I'm getting it slightly off. But I think it took Oculus 3.5 years to get to 100 million prior to the Quest
The
launch.
Quest, really. I mean,
So
we
so
knew,
like
we,
that.
we
So
knew the
by the
Quest was going to
time
be a game changer. So
Yes. So by the time the Quest came out, the Quest helped the entire ecosystem get to 100 million.
mhm.
But since a year's passed, the Quest in and of itself has made its own 100 million.
100 million. Yep.
So
And we'll dig into each of these. I was just trying to rattle off all the
yeah,
Oculus ones. So
no, do it.
Oculus Quest turned one. Oculus Quest software is at over 100 million. Um, the Oculus business version is now available, and got a little thing for you guys here. I like being able to share my screen, so I feel like that helps us with. There you go. So now you can see it's
Cool.
$1,000 for the business platform. And then finally, and this is where we can really dig in, but Oculus hand tracking is now available. And Ronnie, have you had a chance to jump into this yet and try any of the hand tracking?
Well, I mean, I've tried hand tracking in various like side quest software that's out there and
Hmm.
like in menus and stuff, but I haven't had a chance now that it's quote unquote official. They kind of brought it out of beta.
Yep.
I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I've heard people saying it has been improved. So if people out there had tried it using the beta software, that supposedly hand tracking is working better now. I thought it was working pretty well for what it was before, anyways. So, but apparently they've made some updates to make it that much more responsive. And then I'm not sure if I know that there are certain software titles out there that are going to day one release with it. Like I saw um, the Curious Case of the Stolen Pets, for example, which is a
Yeah.
game that I really like. They're adding full hand tracking support for that. I'm not sure if that's just going to be an update that comes out, now if it's available. I need to probably turn on my Quest and get it updated to check it out.
For hand tracking.
But
So I
yeah,
actually did get a chance to try it out
so
just
is
earlier
it?
today.
Oh, so it's working for you
Yeah.
then?
So for those who are interested in, yep, it works, and I'll give my kind of semi review of it. But in order to get there, you have to go into settings, and then it's under the experimental tab. And when you go there, you have to turn on hand tracking.
See, so I could be wrong, and like I said, I want to go and kind of check it out on my Quest, but the
Hmm.
experimental section might be kind of the beta version of like my understanding is with this official release that it's just going to be like a standard
Oh, it's gonna be a
feature.
standard winner.
Yeah, it won't be listed as experimental. It's just going to be like a released version of
Gotcha.
it. So that's what.
Okay.
So, but we'll have to wait and see. Like I need
I
to
I
turn mine on
know
just to double check.
starting May 28th is the date that they listed that they will start working with apps and developers
That's what.
um, to
Like
to
I
transfer some
think
of that over.
yeah, if my understanding was correct, I think new or developers can start submitting their applications for hand tracking only software as of
Gotcha.
like May
Okay.
28th.
May
So
28th. Yeah,
so
that was the date.
yeah, so I think right now so that's why I say like there was this game, this title I was interested in. I think it's called The Live. I'm trying to let me uh hold on one second. Sorry about that. Yeah, the line. It was
Line. Okay.
because the same publisher that released Pixel Ripped, Arvoir, they're releasing this title called The Line, which
Mhm.
is hand tracking only. So, anyways, so there were a couple of titles that I know are going to be releasing. It almost sounds like they're going to be coming out before that May 28th date with hand tracking.
Yeah,
So,
there are a couple.
so
Mhm.
yeah, so it's possible that Curious Case of the Stolen Pets already has hand tracking, which I can't wait to check out when I get off of this. But yeah, May 28th is when new software will be proposed. Like developers can propose new software,
Mhm.
and they can actually propose software that only uses hand tracking. So a game doesn't have to support both.
Support both.
Obviously, titles that have been out previously
Will. Yeah.
will because they were supporting the controllers before, and
Mhm.
obviously there's a lot of use cases where a controller is definitely better,
Mhm.
but certain things, I mean, I think that there's certain types of applications that don't really need a
Yeah.
ton of precision that will be more immersive if you're using your hands, as long as they can get the if,
I I agree. It's just we're not there yet, though.
yeah, as long as they can get the interface to react properly,
Mhm.
and the interactions are fairly light. I think that like going through menus and like I mean stuff like watching movies in big screen, for example. Like it would be
Yeah.
really nice. Like for me, I always have to find a place to kind of set down my controller so that I can sit back and relax and just watch the movies.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if I could navigate all that stuff just using my hands and not have to worry about putting down controllers or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah,
so what I mean, I was messing with it earlier. It's there's definitely some weird I don't want to say glitches because it's working, right? But like the first thing I noticed is that there's just a tiny bit of lag.
yeah,
And it is noticeable because like now I'm like literally moving my fingers like this and I can see the lag
yeah,
and
just
feel the
slightly
lag.
off.
Yeah, just slightly off. Um and there was one of the other issues that I ran into while trying it out was also I was able to turn on the menu because like that I think if you put your face or your hand in front of your face and you just make like a little
Yeah,
grin,
yeah,
it automatically brings up the menu. But then all of a sudden, like I have to do this weird kind of like thing where I have to point my fingers down just to be able to point at where I need to on the menu rather than
yeah. Oh,
just
that's weird.
yeah. And again,
Mine
I
wasn't.
was sitting. I was in a seated experience.
Okay.
I mean, I was just sitting and seated, kind of going through the home screen. But
Yeah,
it was just a weird thing to try to navigate when having the controllers
yeah.
would be so much easier.
No,
Now,
I'll be honest. Like for me, like with like I said, I don't know if they've made changes, and it kind of sounds like what you're talking about is maybe
mhm,
the experimental stuff, is maybe before the official release.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, like I wasn't a big fan of how they implemented the menu. Like it was never easy for me to get around the menu
mhm,
in in the home on the home screen of the Oculus Quest or anything like that. The couple of applications that I used where I thought, oh, this is something that could be helpful, was actually back in Oculus Connect,
mhm.
where I got to try some demos that they had out. I don't know if it was Waltz of the Wizard that they were showing off. They were showing off
So,
definitely a title where I could do like kind of magic spells and that kind of thing. I know Waltz of the Wizard is a game that's going to be uh, supporting hand tracking right now, I think.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, but there was a similar type of demo where you got to touch different objects and like cast spells or do those kind of things, and that worked fairly well. But then there was one where It was an insurance training program. And it was basically you were in a kitchen environment and you were supposed to be pointing out all of the different places in the kitchen that had issues that might potentially be insurance claims.
Interesting. Okay.
And but it was just a simple, you were just pointing at things and checking boxes and going through simple menus, and it was that kind of thing, but doing it all with your hands rather than having to use your controllers. And it was made to show not only that it would be easier to do certain tasks like that without controllers, but also,
Mhm.
if you were going to be using this as training for people that weren't used to having to hold something like that in their hand. Like you can imagine, people that might not have experience with game controllers at all, but
Yeah.
you want to train them on the job for something. Using hand tracking might be a lot easier for them. So anyway, those are all applications that to me they seem to work pretty well even in that early kind of demo phase of hand tracking.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I mean, yeah, if the release of hand tracking now officially is, if they're still going to be using those weird point and like pinch and that kind of stuff
Mhm.
that the Oculus menus were using before. I wasn't a huge fan of that, but
It's
hopefully
it's
they've
not it's not intuitive.
yeah. So
I think
hopefully
that was the weird part for me, but
and I think that that's also probably I mean, they were having to retrofit menus that were created for controllers to then
mhm,
work with certain gestures with your fingers. And
yeah.
I think really the way forward with hand gesture, like with actual hand tracking, is to
Mhm.
have UIs from the ground up that are built for actually pointing with your hands
Yeah.
and dealing with. So hopefully, like I'm actually most excited to see what developers are able to do with it,
Yeah.
because if they're going to be submitting software to Oculus that was built from the ground up for hand tracking, hopefully that means that, you know, like in the past, I think it's developers that are often the ones that are leading the way in terms of figuring out the best way to control things
Mhm.
in VR and the best UIs that work and that are intuitive. And so I think this is actually the first stage, I think, in us really getting software that does a good job of utilizing it.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, you brought up a good point with we're kind of being the orientation is going backwards, right? By having these menus. I I would disagree to a certain extent by saying that these are just basic menus. So I feel
Yeah.
like how they go about navigating basic menus isn't really going to change,
Yeah.
from here towards the future. I will say though that while I am very excited for what hand tracking can do and can bring to the table, I wonder what we would lose out on in the current state of VR by not having the what's the gosh, I'm blanking on the
Tactile,
word.
maybe, or
No,
uh,
not the just like the vibration on the controllers.
yeah, yeah, just haptics and
Haptics. There you go. That's the
yeah.
word I was
No,
looking for.
that's a big deal. That's why I don't think that this is like, if anybody thinks that hand tracking is just going to replace controllers, period, then that's silly. But
Yeah.
because that's similar to like the Connect or the like,
Th-
definitely I think
there-
there's a place. Yeah, there's a
yeah.
place for it, but I think it's a specific use case scenario. Certain
Mhm.
types of experiences. I really think it's going to come down to developers, them trying things out,
Yeah.
and and obviously there's going to be titles that try to use both, but I think I'm most interested in titles where the developers have decided that they can do things with hand tracking that they
Mhm.
wouldn't be able to do with a controller,
Yeah.
and go that direction versus something that, there's going to be certain types of experiences that even though you don't have haptics, that just actually not holding a controller and using your hands will add to the experience. Like those types of things, I'm looking forward to. I
Mhm.
definitely am not looking forward to, and I'm sure there'll be examples of this, people kind of shoehorning in, hand tracking where a
Where
controller would be better.
yeah, and
Um,
that it's in a way I don't want people to waste time on that. I'd rather
yeah,
see what kind of cool ingenuity and creative types of experiences people can come up with because
yeah,
it's like all these games are fantastic with a controller.
yeah,
And I'm talking about most of the games that I've played so far on
yeah,
Quest. I just don't know that having hand tracking and them would make them any better. In fact, I feel
Yeah,
like it would take some of the experience away. Now, that
yeah,
being said, hand tracking on something like navigating the main menu, or if I open up the Netflix app, or if I open
yeah,
up something and I don't know where my controllers are, so I can just put my hands up and do
yeah.
whatever I need to do.
Or
That,
or or if it's a game that's completely built from the ground up to
yeah, yeah.
utilize your
Well,
hands and
I'm
not like
saying that, yeah, that'll
yeah,
that'll that'll be coming hopefully
yeah,
in the near future. But for
yeah,
what I'm seeing right now,
yeah,
it's cool. It still blows my mind about the fact that, how forward thinking and how somewhat future proof Oculus was making the headset, because I mean the Quest was already impressive as it was a year ago, right? But to be able to, with the software update, implement hand tracking, something that nobody else has really done or done well up to
yeah,
this point, without having to buy another piece of hardware or having to go through any kind of specific upgrade, I think it's fantastic. So
yeah,
I'm very excited to see where the space goes in terms of like hand tracking and how that's utilized within VR. But right now, I guess what I'm trying to say is I love it. I think it's a really cool idea. Just don't try to. I just hope people don't waste time going back trying to recreate some of these games so that hand
sure.
tracking works, because I just don't
No,
think that
I agree.
would be worthwhile.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. So, and then, but for Oculus, I mean, I haven't tried the new UI in the Quest with hand tracking because they released an update, and I don't know if it's I sometimes forget what is part of like the beta releases versus what's just being released as the final versions because
Hmm.
I'm usually in all of the beta programs. But recently the betas at least um, provided kind of a big change to the UI system in the Quest.
Yep.
So like the default menu system looks quite a bit different. I don't know if those work better with hand tracking now or not. Like if they seem like they're more like almost like buttons that you could push, but I could be wrong. But that's yeah, I would like Oculus though to like rethink their menu so that it works a little bit better both ways because
Hmm.
that's the only thing is like I feel like especially early on, like you were mentioning the whole pinch and point and like they're using it basically just like you use your controllers to be a cursor
Yeah.
and really, like, when you're using your hands in VR, it should be more like working like an iPhone or an iPad, or like it should be more you pressing buttons in VR and them working, I think, rather than you like pinching and angling your
Yeah. Yeah.
and like
No, I agree.
yeah, so
Um,
but whatever. Like we'll see how that stuff goes. But one other thing kind of on I just wanted to bring up because you had
sure.
mentioned how far Oculus Quest has came in the year since it's been released.
Hmm.
Another thing that they recently put into play, and I haven't had a chance to try it. Apparently, the pass through system now can detect objects in your play space. So it's not moving objects, like it's not detecting like if somebody walks in your play space yet, for
Hmm.
example. But apparently when you're setting up the play area, it can detect objects within that area and help you block them out easier. Something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So like if there's a couch in the way or something like that, like it'll notice that you have these static objects there and that does sound like it's a step forward in terms of it
Hmm.
sounds like the next thing would be to be able to like in real time detect if something came through your play area and warn you of it. So
Hmm.
like if a person's walking through and these are all things, I mean, if Oculus and and the other vendors out there want VR to become mainstream, like making it safe for people when they have headsets on is like a key thing. So
Yeah.
like
Agreed.
these are I mean, it seems like Facebook is really putting a lot of attention towards like computer vision and making these cameras on the Quest do more and more things. So
Hmm.
that is pretty cool, and that's something that like you don't see coming from Valve or from HTC or the amount of money I think that Facebook has been able to put into specifically like these types of advancements for VR, just
Hmm.
like using the pass through cameras to be able to do all of these really cool things. I think that's huge because the
Yeah.
pass through cameras, I mean, the way that you set up your play space with the Quest and even with the Rift S is still, I think, like leaps and bounds ahead of the other systems that are out there. Just being able to see and draw and make it that easy.
Hmm.
So that yeah, so kudos to Facebook and Oculus for making these advances and continuing to push their hardware. One thing I'll say that is a little bit kind of like it seems like 100% Oculus is putting all of its eggs in the Quest basket, because a lot of these things that we're talking about, they're not coming to the Rift S, even though like recently I think it was shown that you can get hand tracking to work on the PC if you connect your Quest via, the link cable.
Okay.
So it's something that, you would think would be a technology that could come to the Rift S. So
Yeah.
maybe that stuff is coming, but yeah, it seems like they're really, putting all their attention on the Quest. And with rumors out there of a kind of a Rift S, or like an Oculus Quest S, or some like kind of souped up version of the Quest coming, you just hope that Oculus continues to support, its past headsets, as well as its, like right now the Quest is their bread and butter. It's their main headset. I just hope that they continue to put forth support for their older products like the Quest when new fancy headsets come out in the future. So,
but if we're being honest though, I would say that the Quest is the future.
yeah,
To be
no, it
able to get
is.
the
I
Rift
think,
capabilities with the versatility of the Quest, I mean that's where it's at, right? So I mean,
yeah, and that's where the money's at. I mean, it's showing the attention that people are giving the Quest. I mean, even for me, I mean, someone that has multiple headsets, I definitely view the Quest as being a cornerstone of VR, in terms of if you want to be able to experience everything right now. The Quest is like a major pillar in that ecosystem. So,
and for the price point, it's still
oh
one of
yeah,
the best. So
for sure.
last thing on this Oculus, and this is more so, I'm just curious, where would you put the odds on some type of haptic feedback gloves coming out at some point that would pair with Oculus?
I
If
don't know. Yeah,
just because the hand tracking is available, right? But
sure.
we talked about this before, because there's been always some kind of peripheral developments here and there.
Yeah.
I don't. I guess I'll answer my own question first. I don't know that I would ever see that really taking off. I mean, unless Oculus, unless they were a part of the headset, right? Unless it came as like a package deal and it was designed in that way.
Yeah.
Uh, but we're seeing accessories pop up left and right. I'm
Yeah.
just curious, is that something you would see taking off?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, because I was gonna, at first I thought you were going, like, I was gonna say, well, it clearly seems like they're putting their focus towards hand tracking, as far as like how you get your hands into VR.
Hmm.
But yeah, how to get haptics into hand tracking is the question. And like how to make hand tracking, how to give
Well,
hand tracking more of a physical, like kind of tangible feel
mhm,
to it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about what people are working on. I would imagine they have to be working on something like that, but whether that ever sees the light of day, or whether it's something that
mhm.
they'd like seriously consider, I don't know. I mean, the other thing is there's like alongside the rumors of a new version of the Quest, there were rumblings. We mentioned it a while back, I think. There were rumblings of like a Jedi controller or something, an
I did
Oculus
hear,
Jedi.
yeah, I remember
So
hearing
like
about that too.
some kind of a new controller. I don't know. Who knows? Like
Yeah.
what they're working on as far as their next kind of, what they think control options are
Controller.
going to be like, other than haptics,
Yeah.
or other than hand tracking. But
All right.
that's an interesting question. Like you got me thinking though, because that's not like
I
like
just wonder if that is the future
yeah, it doesn't seem
of
like the
VR.
craziest thing. Like if you
You know what I
could,
mean?
yeah, if you can track hands well enough, and then
Well,
you were wearing some kind of a glove that didn't have to worry about the tracking aspect of it, because the cameras are tracking the hands,
mhm,
but the only purpose of wearing the thin gloves would be to have some kind of a like small motor or something in
yeah.
fingertips or something to give. I don't know.
Well,
It sounds like a neat idea, but I
this
don't
is
know.
this is more, Ready Player One kind of mythology, with the idea that, like, not necessarily now. Somebody's probably working on it now, and there might be a buggy third-party version that would maybe become
Yeah.
available. But I guess what I'm trying to think about is, let's say Oculus Quest 3.0, 4.0, whenever that comes around, it might not be called Oculus Quest, but when those come around, when you
Hmm.
open the box, instead of two controllers, is it going to have gloves in there? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It
Uh,
doesn't sound like a terrible idea, because like I said, if
because
you're gonna, yeah, if you're
yeah,
gonna have to hold something, or if they really think that hand tracking is something that could replace a controller at some point. I don't know. I still think that there's always a place for like buttons, but
Well,
who
I mean,
knows?
I'm talking about a seamless experience that your gloves are paired with the headset experience tracking all around, so that let's say like you touch something in VR,
Yeah, you can feel it. Like
like you feel it,
yeah,
or even more so if the gloves are made of a sturdier type of material. Let's say you pick up something in VR, it will only let your hand close that much. You
yeah,
understand what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like, and I
yeah.
don't know. And again, now
People
we're
are
getting too
working
speculative,
on like
but
yeah, people are working on all kinds of prototypes when it comes to that kind of haptics, like you're talking about, like things
yeah,
that would physically like
take
there
shape,
was a
right?
really interesting video that I watched. I think it was a test video um, that you can find on YouTube, but it had to do with like yeah, it was some type of a haptic solution that someone was working on. They were getting into a lot of really interesting kind of questions and answers about what their limitations are. Like
Hmm.
as far as you want to be able to put force on the player's hands, but you can't put too much like you don't want force that could break their hand, for example. Like you want
Yeah,
you want there to be like resistance, but not resistance that could actually,
like
hurt you.
mess things up,
Yeah,
or yeah,
because
potentially injure
because
you.
because you think about it, like some of that stuff, like if it was really giving you real resistance, it could potentially like push on you in a weird way
Yeah,
or
that's
so
true.
yeah, so they were talking about like they're doing this research and they're figuring out what the exact like how far they want to go with it and what are the things that feel most convincing, like being able to feel like let's say you put out your hand and you feel like raindrops on your hand,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Like what are convincing sensations versus what are not. Like
Yeah.
tons of people are working on this stuff. I just think it's like it hasn't gotten to the point where it's small enough and like effective enough for like a mass product
Hmm.
besides just like vibrating vests and those
Yeah, yeah.
sort of things.
Well,
But it's definitely no, I think it's definitely going to be something that is going to eventually get there. Like
yeah.
I think the sensation of physically feeling what you're experiencing is important enough to where people are going to work on it until some kind of a solution can be made. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be one of those things where it's just not important and we're just going to have VR forever without any sort of a physical
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if it takes a neural link to be able to physically feel what's going on, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
it's gonna yeah, it'll eventually I think be a part of VR
Yeah.
somehow.
I do wonder if hand tracking is more rather than a VR experience, is more a bridge to like an AR experience, right? At some point, being able
Yeah.
to
I'm
utilize and combine the two in a seamless and intuitive way. But
Yeah, probably. And
that's
well,
yeah.
that's actually a decent segue to, I mean, we're not talking about all the Apple rumors right now about Apple Glass or whatever, but
Mhm.
um, Apple bought
But next
Next
VR. Yep.
VR,
All right,
which I know is a
let's jump to that one because that was the other big topic we wanted to discuss. Yeah, so I mean, for those who don't know, Next VR, they've been around since I believe. Well, I'm not sure how long they've been around, but 2016 was when they first popped on my radar because they signed a deal with the NBA where I believe once a week you were able to watch a game as though you were courtside in 180-degree kind of experience, which I had never had the chance to do. But if hopefully the NBA starts up and running again, I would love to be able to try that now on the Quest. Just it's easy. Again, the Quest is just easier to jump in and out of.
yep.
And so Apple bought Next VR, and actually I'd like to share their website because their website has been completely stripped,
Huh.
uh, and this is all they have on there. It's that they are heading in a new direction. So we're not really sure what this means. I think what makes me excited, and as somebody who is a self-proclaimed Apple fan, uh, it's cool to see Apple investing in this, right? Like you were just talking about Apple Glass or the Apple goggles. What could potentially be coming down the pipeline from them within
Mhm.
the near future?
Mhm.
To make an acquisition like this. I mean, Next VR was a company that was well developed in the VR and live sports space specifically, or live experience space.
Yep.
So I'm with the fact that Apple has such a wide ranging company in terms of music experiences. Now you have Apple TV. I just feel like there's, this seems like a very interesting buy for them, a very interesting acquisition. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first, kind of like you, I was always really interested in the idea. I had never, like, every time I had tried 360 video and 180 video, like up to a certain point, like I never fell in love with it.
Hmm.
But that's probably unfair. Like at this point, there's been enough time and enough advances in the tech that I think I should be giving it another shot, because
Hmm.
I definitely know that there have been a lot more advances in that capture technology. And I know that Oculus has been doing a lot of cool events with the Quest that you can jump into fairly easily. So I need to give that a shot. My general thought is that Next VR is probably a pioneer and probably one of the companies in the world with the most experience in terms of what is possible with technology to
Hmm.
capture events in 3D space. And so, whether they're going to be able to do more or less with that technology, with this acquisition, I'd assume more. I think it's probably a huge pickup for Apple in terms of. I think that shows that they are definitely interested in this, and I think a virtual reality type space, because I know all the rumors are really focused on AR,
For
and
Apple, yeah.
and I've seen arguments to, like, that are to the effect of, to get a company like Apple interested in something, they're not talking about disrupting like the VR market, right? The VR market
Mhm.
is peanuts. For them, it's like, can you disrupt the glasses market? That's what we want to go after is
Yeah.
people wear glasses. Let's make a better version of glasses. Like
Hmm.
that's kind of some of the arguments I've heard.
Or
Well,
let's make glasses that people want to wear, right?
yeah.
How many people didn't wear watches before an Apple Watch came out type of thing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So taking something that like has proven to be something that humans like to do, and then making that thing,
Hmm.
even better.
Good point.
Um, so I think a lot of people are obviously focused on the AR side of things, but I mean, what Next VR has been doing is more. I mean, in order to experience a live event in VR, you do have to be shut off from your current place in the world, right?
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
the whole purpose of what they've done, at least up to this point, has been about transporting people to another place,
Hmm.
which is really what VR does. And so, I mean, maybe they're pivoting to a new direction means they completely go away from what they've been doing, but I kind of doubt that. I think for a company like that to be acquired, it means that there's a technology or something that they've been working on that's of value to Apple, something that Apple feels like they have expertise in that they don't have internally. And I would have to imagine it has to do with that kind of capture. So so I'm excited for that, because Apple has I mean, if there's one thing that was tough for me to, like, if there was a reason to stay out of some of the Next VR stuff previously, it's
Hmm.
that they were a platform within a platform within a platform. Like, I think that's sometimes what keeps me away from finding some of the stuff, is the fact that it's not natively built into Steam VR or the Oculus software. You kind of have to download an app and then go into that app and then use their kind of janky method of getting through their content to try to find something. If they're the ones that are producing the content, but Apple's the one that's kind of curating and like marketing it and
Hmm. Well,
putting it in a
yeah,
nice package,
Apple has
like,
the infrastructure for all of that too,
that's
which
my
yeah.
point. I think it makes sense if you're great at providing content. I think it's amazing to be able to be taken over by a company like Apple, like a company that has proven to be able to distribute content well.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah. So at the very least, I think Apple will do a better job of distributing the content that Next VR is able to produce than what they've been able to distribute on their own.
Yeah.
As to if this means that they're going to be creating some kind of new content that we've not seen before, that's also exciting. But if it's just getting their content out better, who knows? Like, maybe they've been doing a lot of stuff that I should have paid more attention to, and on a future Apple product, I'll be able to do that.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah.
I just think that the infrastructure of a company like Apple will allow them to scale quite well.
Yeah.
And so and it's one of those things where non VR related, but with Apple TV launching and Apple really wanting to build a library of content, original content. They hired, and I forgot his name, but he was one of the former general managers or head of content at HBO, like basically the guy who in the early 2000s was responsible for launching, I guess the second golden age of TV with The Sopranos and then Game of Thrones, The Wire. Somebody who oversaw all of that. So for them to be able to acquire this and put hopefully an infrastructure in place around it that would help get it out, or maybe it's complementing the secret tech that they have right now, where hey, now it's like Apple Glass is going to launch, and with Apple Glass you get a free year of being able to watch NBA games in your living room as if
See,
you were there.
I hadn't even thought of that, but because most of the attention with Google Glass has been about, oh, your phone is going to be the primary kind of brain behind
Hmm.
the device, kind of like it was for the most part in early iterations of the Apple Watch.
Hmm.
So like the phone was really doing everything, and the watch was kind of a companion. So
Yeah.
it sounds like whatever their AR VR product is likely to be, it's likely that it's going to offload a lot of the responsibilities of the processing to your phone. But
Hmm.
I like your idea of, well, it could also be offloading it from a Mac or an Apple TV.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
that that
that's what they're
so
known for, their ecosystem.
yeah,
So
so that's actually really, I mean, for whatever reason, the thought hadn't even crossed my mind that they could theoretically, yeah, connect that to even a MacBook,
mhm.
or to give it extra juice, which is
Yeah.
kind of a cool concept. But I guess we'll wait and see.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But to me, again, that's exciting just to see Apple kind of throwing its weight around in the VR space. So we'll see how that plays out. Uh, Two other minor news things that we can just kind of run through as we wrap up here. The first one, and I know this, some people might not think it's minor, but we just don't have much information on it yet. It is the fact that Valve, Microsoft, and HP
Yep.
are coming together to create the next generation Steam VR headset. So,
Yeah.
first
And
things
this is
first.
something, I mean, yeah, the news has been out for a little while. I just wanted to We hadn't talked about it on the
Mhm.
show. So I
Yeah,
wanted to bring it up because who knows when kind of a more formal announcement of this thing might be coming. So
true. But I wasn't even aware of the fact that this kind of partnership was happening, which I guess as somebody who runs a news show, we should have been on top of it and mentioned it earlier.
Well,
But
to be fair, they've barely mentioned it, and realistically, like, I mean, there's certain aspects of it that make me think Valve might be more involved than just kind of a minor player. But I
mhm,
mean, like it almost seems like there's certain design cues that came from the Index, like
yeah.
the side speakers, for
Mhm.
example, and maybe that's all it is. Maybe they have some kind of patent around those speakers and they're licensing it to that. Like it sounds like it. I don't know. We talked about it a little bit back when it was a new headset, but HP H, HP had released uh, the original Reverb, which its claim to fame, it's a Windows MR headset,
Mhm.
but it had a really really high resolution, and it came out kind of around the same time that the Quest and the Valve Index were launching, and like it was actually higher resolution than even the Index as far as like visuals were concerned. But
Yeah.
I think in terms of like movement in the headset, and it just wasn't, the headset itself didn't seem like the best uh proposition for gamers. It
Yeah.
was more, it had some advantages, but overall the Index was better.
Mhm.
So this is it. It sounds like this is kind of the sequel to that headset. I think they're referring it to as like the Reverb G2 or something like that.
G2.
I
Okay, I haven't
forget.
heard of it.
I forget exactly. I saw it on some article somewhere, um, but yeah, it looks like kind of the next version of that headset, but
Mhm.
with some specific Steam VR kind of trappings around it. So I don't know if this is just them working a little bit, and they're calling it a no compromise headset, but it clearly has cameras on the front. It looks like it's probably it probably has some kind of a like Windows MR style Oculus type inside out tracking system. I don't think it. So maybe this could be kind of a I don't know. Maybe this could be an inside out tracked kind of similar version.
Of
Like
that.
it could
Yeah.
be well, like an inside out tracking version of like a smaller index. Maybe I don't
Mhm.
know. Like maybe it has some of the comfort features that the index has with the nice speakers and everything,
Mhm.
with increased field of view and that sort of thing. But then it has inside out tracking so that it doesn't have to have outside trackers, and maybe they can lower the price somewhat because of that. I don't know. We don't have any images of the controllers,
No,
so I
no,
don't know.
just the headset there, and
But
yeah.
yeah, but I'll say like my initial, my initial impressions were, well, how much are they really working with Valve on this? Because
Mhm.
Valve, that's something that I failed to mention. The rumors are that Valve is working with Apple on Apple glasses too.
Do
Yes.
I had no idea. Do you have sources for this, or is it just rumor?
Somewhere I'm sure
Okay.
there's, yeah, right now I'll just say I read it somewhere, but like it seems like there were rumors that they were at least consulting with that, like they're definitely talking with them about it.
Apple partnering with Valve to develop. Yeah, this is Mac rumors. Apple partnering with Valve to develop AR headset. Interesting. Okay, let
So
me.
Valve kind of has its, like, I mean, Valve is right now, like, I think they're them and Facebook. Those are the two companies that are really kind of kings of the VR space. And so if you're not
Mhm.
Facebook, Facebook obviously is doing some amazing things. If you're not Facebook and you don't want to partner with Facebook, seems like Valve is a decent partner. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing with it, right? Like, uh, my two comments on, and not this, not the Apple related part, but the Valve, Microsoft, HP. The first thing is that it seems like the Valve HTC partnership is over, or at least not on the forefront for them anymore. So I
Yeah.
do wonder what that means for the future of the Vive and the Vive line of products in terms of its compatibility and all that. But we can see just how much HTC was relying on Valve for a lot of the underlying technology and the integration with Steam, and so it remains to be seen. I guess it kind of throws a little damper on what potentially could be the Vive 2. Although at this point, I feel like there's so many headsets, including the Index, Oculus, and now this potential one, that I don't think that we'll have a problem finding headsets. But I'm just curious to see what would come next for HTC.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is looking at a partnership involving Valve, Microsoft, and HP has me really excited from the simple standpoint that HP seems like a more than competent hardware manufacturer. They've been making
I agree.
laptops and other computers for a very long time. But Microsoft being in there, Microsoft has a huge backlog and experience with gaming, which is what's super hot in VR right now.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, will there at some point be potentially the halo of VR content on a headset like that?
Or yeah, or could this be a stepping stone? And I know, like, Phil Spencer, president of Xbox, like he hasn't said anything. In fact, he said like things that would suggest Xbox is not moving in a VR direction. But yeah, if they're working, if they release really good products, it
Hmm.
would be. I would love to see a headset like this that's well made in conjunction with all three of those partners eventually, coming to the Xbox Series X or something like that. So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah,
I guess
like, no, I agree, because Microsoft. I mean, that's the one thing that still, every single time we're putting these news items together, and we're gonna have another one here at the end. I'm always, as someone that doesn't own a major console for whatever reason, I never jumped ship to get a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One.
Mhm.
I'm always jealous of all the amazing first party titles that are coming to PlayStation VR. And
Well,
so, I mean, clearly Sony, I mean, I mean, really, like, Oculus has shown that it can make some wonderful first party titles. And
mhm,
the only other real, like, first party kind of heavyweight in the VR space right now, I think, is Sony, because the
true,
PlayStation
yeah.
VR has some really awesome exclusives.
Yep.
So if you ever did get Microsoft into that, and Microsoft was a little bit more comfortable with kind of crossing paths between the PC and their console
Mhm.
with VR titles, that'd be amazing.
Well, the
This
thing
is kind of pie in the sky, I think,
yeah, no,
given what
100%.
Microsoft has said. But yeah,
All speculation, pie in the sky. But I think when you and I talk about VR and think about VR, we think on 5, 10, 15-year horizons, right? Like where is this technology headed? And what could potentially, it's might not, and it probably isn't profitable for them to be pouring lots of money into something right now. But it's cool to see them involved with a company like Valve and getting their feet wet with a company like HP. Obviously, they already have the HoloLens, but I guess what I'm trying to say is Microsoft is another gigantic company,
yeah,
one of the few $1 trillion companies similar to Apple that we always talk about the fact that Facebook is pouring money into the VR space and really creating and kind of helping it not just survive but thrive in a sense, right? So
hmm
to see Microsoft with their background in gaming and what they've been able to do, to me, it's just a business decision, right? Like once the fact that Oculus, the Quest has sold $100 million worth of software, I'm sure has people's ears perked up, right? Because it's one of those things where, hey, how many people are going to buy this Valve, Microsoft, HP headset? If, and I'm speculating here, I haven't heard anything, so I just want to clarify. But how many people would go out and buy it if all of a sudden they were going to port Halo um, into that headset as an exclusive,
yeah. I
right?
mean,
Like,
that would be amazing.
right,
Obviously,
like
yeah,
how many Halo fans are there in the world that would say
yeah,
like,
and like a
yeah,
real Halo game, not
oh,
just
oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
a
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
I mean, even if they did something similar to what happened with Half-Life Alex, or even if they recreated well, I used the word ported earlier, but like
yeah.
taking a game, but then being able to play that fully
Yeah,
in
like a
VR,
full Halo. That would be.
a
I
full
mean, I
Halo,
would
a
love
full
that.
Halo title,
Obviously, yeah,
like to me, that's what launched really the Xbox way back in the early 2000s. That would be, in my opinion, their kind of launch into the VR space, right? Like
yeah.
you get
Well,
you
I mean,
get your feet
yeah,
wet with a headset like that, and then if you can build the software, the kind of I guess killer app that people are looking for as an exclusive, to me that would be what would be exciting. Sorry,
yeah,
that is what is exciting about Microsoft getting into the game.
yeah. No, and it would be incredible if it was like that, as opposed to like right now. My biggest question for this headset, I think, has more to do with Valve's uh, participation, just because like the prior Reverb headset was, because it was a mixed reality, Windows mixed reality headset. So it was Microsoft in the sense that it supported the Windows mixed reality
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem, whatever. And then HP is obviously the one. So like I'm more interested to see if what Valve's contribution to this project is, because if they could bring a lot of the awesomeness of the Valve Index to a
Mm-hmm.
headset that has maybe a little bit more polish on the manufacturing side. Like I know people talk about the Valve Index being like a super high quality, high value product, and
Yeah,
it is, and it's amazing. But there are some rough edges around how it was
of course.
manufactured, and
Yeah.
because it's obviously led to a lot of RMA issues and this and that, and like there's just some quality assurance control type
Mm-hmm.
questions about how some of that stuff. If Yeah, I'm curious if eventually they can partner with someone that can manufacture headsets, that are a little bit more polished in terms of like a physical product. If
Mm-hmm.
that won't later, evolve into kind of what the index will eventually become.
That's
But
true.
yeah, I don't. But I don't know. Like all of these things are good questions. Like, and it's all interesting because I totally agree with you. If like I think Microsoft has some really good first party content,
Oh
and
yeah.
if they could bring some of that stuff to the VR landscape to get people excited, like that's yeah,
Again, I mean, this would be years down the road, but it is cool to see them kind of dabbling with the hardware side of things, because we know on the software end they have
yeah.
more than capable resources to
No,
be
and
able to support
I
something
am
like that.
really curious to see kind of where Windows mixed reality goes. Like I hope like it was a push from Microsoft early on to kind of bring, VR to Windows,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity in terms of um I don't know. It just didn't really get the same type of they I don't know what they would have had to do to make it a more viable platform than it became. Um but clearly, Oculus and Steam VR are still the two main heavyweights, and they're
Yeah.
kind of a distant third party as far as. So I wonder. kind of number one, what their initial aspirations were for that platform, and then two, where it goes from here. If they continue to invest in VR platform, are they going to, support the other VR ecosystems on the PC more, or are they going to like that would be interesting if they kind of became more involved with the Steam ecosystem with this partnership with HP and Valve, and somehow started bringing, maybe this is a sign that they'll be moving away from only supporting VR in the Microsoft store, and maybe they're going to start bringing things to Steam VR, and maybe at that point, then if they brought some of that first party software, it would get more steam that way.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. But anyways,
of the very few companies out there that could actually acquire Steam if they wanted to, and Valve, it'd be Microsoft.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we'll see how this partnership kind of lines up. Like you said, this news has been out there for a while, and there hasn't really been any updates to it. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it and speculate when we do hear further news. But let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I think the last thing you kind of somewhat mentioned already with the with
PlayStation,
of PlayStation, but to me this is super exciting. And let me go ahead and share the proper screen. There it is. But for those who are fans of Marvel, the Iron Man demo for PSVR is out now. I believe the full game is coming out July 3rd. Let me see there. And I won't play the trailer on here, but this is on IGN. You guys can go check it out whenever you have the chance. And if you have a PSVR, we are jealous. And Ronnie and I were actually just talking about how the next console that we end up getting has to be PlayStation, just due to the PSVR element.
Because that's the craziest thing. Like the PlayStation 4 is one of those systems that like I was really heavily, invested into the PC side of things, and with VR and all of that stuff, that I just kept pushing off. Like, yeah, someday I might get a PlayStation 4, and like just more and more of these VR titles have hit the PlayStation VR that like I don't want to get a PlayStation 4 right now, because the PlayStation 5 is almost out. But man, like there's so many cool PlayStation VR games.
Yeah. And
this looks incredible. And it would be amazing if somehow this eventually came over to Oculus or Steam. But yeah, I'm super jealous. And for people with PlayStation VRs, I mean, go download the demo now, because
that's how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard cool things. Like it definitely looks cool. So VR is one of those things you don't know until you play them. So, but yeah, like yeah, I think that was definitely a role playing fantasy. Like when VR first came out, of like flying around as Iron Man.
Do you remember Rishi's Plank experience?
Yeah,
we talked about that this right here are the building blocks for an Iron Man game. That's all you would really need. So yeah, really cool stuff. I'm jealous, and I do look forward to playing the game at some point in the future. So we'll discuss that further in terms of how we can secure our
I like your optimism. Like I'm gonna take that same. I am gonna play Iron Man VR. Like I'm going to find a way to play that game.
You will. We will. Like I said, we were talking earlier before about how I said that I feel like I want to get another console, not another, but a console, since I haven't really had one for.
You have a Switch, but
so a year and a half ago, I made the decision to go with Switch rather than PlayStation 4.
Not a bad decision though. Like the Switch is cool.
I can't be upset about it, just because to me, I love the social aspect of the Switch. But I do miss a lot of just regular old gaming, right? I feel like a lot of the titles that are great are the other two consoles, whether that's Xbox or PlayStation. And if we're being cognizant of the fact that we want to make sure, or at least that I want to make sure that I'm trying to experience as many VR titles as possible, got to go with PlayStation on that.
You're right. Like that's kind of a no-brainer, honestly, for me now too. Like if I'm going to pick up an Xbox or an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, I think it has to be a PlayStation 5, man, because of their support for VR. Because that's a whole nother window into all kinds of software that, I mean, and this is Microsoft could release a VR headset too. So I'm gonna give Sony my support on this. If they've really been good about supporting VR, and they've released some amazing titles.
Put
And
a lot in. Yeah.
that has to be because otherwise the differences are probably not going to be that major. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But
So
well, this is fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we will be back after the weekend with some more game talk. So enjoy the weekend. Hopefully it's a long weekend for many of you folks. Happy Memorial Day. And Ronnie and I will be back on Monday with some game talk. So Ronnie, it's time for you and I to jump in to whatever game we want to talk about. And yeah, everybody enjoy your VR and virtual reality long weekend. Talk to you
see you
guys later.
guys.